This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. The Browns this upcoming season have one of the weirdest kind of good problems to have that I've ever seen a football team have, period, but the Cleveland Browns have ever. And that problem is Jack Conklin. See, the Browns, through random good fortune, were able to get DeJuan Jones in the draft last year. DeJuan Jones, who was a first-round draft prospect who fell in the draft for reasons that have been described as best as he likes basketball. Like that's been the best description. He likes basketball. He was aloof at the Senior Bowl. 4th round, right? Now we saw when DeJuan Jones got in there last year for an injured Jack Conklin that DeJuan Jones could more than hold his own. Matter of fact, he was one of the better tackles in the NFL. But this leaves you to an interesting question when it comes to Jack Conklin, because not only was Jack Conklin also seen as somebody who was one of the best tackles in the NFL, not only was Jack Conklin signed to the Cleveland Browns on an extension to his contract to presumably start at right tackle, but Jack Conklin is a vet player who gets hurt a lot. So you're in this awkward spot with Jack Conklin. You signed him to a new contract. That means you cannot trade Jack Conklin this year. The reason you can't trade him is the cap benefits won't hit you till next year. So as far as this year goes, you won't benefit from getting rid of Jack Conklin. Unless the trade compensation is something crazy, I doubt the Browns really consider doing that. It would make even less sense for the Cleveland Browns to cut Jack Conklin for the same exact reasons it wouldn't make that much sense to trade him, except for if you cut him, you definitely don't get anything back. His cap hits, what he would free up cap-wise, and remember, the Browns aren't really in a cap squeeze right now. They're actually doing quite fine considering how many players they have under contract. That wouldn't benefit them till next year. So getting rid of him right now just doesn't make sense. So looks like Jack Conklin's going to be on the roster. But what do you do with the extra starting right tackle? Some people theorize maybe you could put Jack at the left side. Absolutely not an option for the Cleveland Browns to flip Jack to the left side. One, and this is really the only reason I'm going to put out here, Jack Conklin has been a right tackle in the NFL for over 10 years. He is not going to be able to flip sides and give you great results. That does not happen in the NFL. And if you don't think I'm the person who's qualified to tell you, fear not, because this comes straight from the mouth of Joe Thomas. He talks about it all the time. If you play more like 3-4 years in NFL, it's really hard for you to switch spots. Then you have the option of, okay, let's keep Jack at right tackle. Let's put DeJuan at left tackle and put Jed on the bench, or maybe even flip Jed to right tackle. I don't like this idea either, because you then take a situation where you have somebody who's used to playing left tackle and you have somebody who's used to playing right tackle, two people who are used to playing right tackle, and then you take two people out of position, and then you have one guy who's used to playing right tackle, and the one guy who's used to playing right tackle or used to being in the position he's going to be in on the offensive line is probably the least reliable guy in Jack Conklin because of his injury history, which is also something that you have to talk about, right? Any plan for Jack Conklin has to factor in that he's been injured a lot, not just as a Cleveland Brown, but throughout his career. He has had the propensity to get injured throughout all of his NFL career. So you look at all that and you wonder, what do you do with Jack, right? You can't trade him. You can't cut him. Should you start Jack Conklin? The thinking here would be you would start Jack Conklin simply because he's a veteran player. He's been in the league longer. He's a former All-Pro. You allow him to keep his starting job. He's also the guy that you're paying to start. Now, DeJuan Jones, while he's good, he's not that expensive. He's a young player. You can make the argument that he could benefit by sitting, but I don't really think that's the case. Either way, that is something that would make sense. And while it would be awkward, well, let's just be real. This is going to be an awkward situation either way, because it's going to be awkward if DeJuan Jones takes Jack Conklin's spot and the Browns are paying over $10 million for a backup right tackle. It's going to be awkward if Jack Conklin starts over DeJuan Jones, because I think at this point, a lot of us believe that DeJuan Jones is just more reliable and better than Jack Conklin is at this point. So it's kind of an awkward spot. Should you start Jack? Should you bench him? I am on the side that Jack Conklin should probably not start. Now, if this were Madden, that'd be real simple. You just put him at right tackle 2, start DeJuan Jones over him, and that's fine. But this is not Madden. This is real life. And, Jack Conklin probably has the expectation that he's going to start. He's probably not going to be thrilled to find out that he's not going to start, that he's going to be benched behind a 4th-round pick in his second year in the NFL when he's a former All-Pro football player. Like a former All-Pro as recently as 2021, right? He's not going to be thrilled. It's going to be questionable if he's going to be willing to accept a backup role. I wonder what conversations have been had behind closed doors with Jack Conklin, with the Cleveland Browns, and with Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. I really hope that this is not something that when we get to August and camp starts, it becomes evident that the Browns just kind of avoided dealing with until training camp starts. I really hope they don't go that route, because this is one of the most awkward situations that you have as far as locker room dynamics. This is one of the most awkward situations that you're just going to have to deal with throughout camp. And while people aren't asking about it now, once people start lining up for first team, second team, this is going to become a big deal. If Jack Conklin is playing second team, people are going to have questions about that. If DeJuan Jones is playing second team, people are going to have a lot of questions about that. This just has the potential to be very, very awkward. I think what's important, if you're the Cleveland Browns, is that before these guys put pads on, before these guys show up for a voluntary OTA, before these guys show up for a mandatory, before we get to any of this, it needs to be made clear, and they need to make a decision on what direction they're going to go at right tackle. If you're going to go with Jack Conklin, you need to let DeJuan Jones know that. You need to let him know why you're going to go that direction. And it just has to be what it has to be, right? DeJuan Jones has to accept that role. Jack Conklin will start. It is what it is. But give them time to be able to accept that. If it's vice versa, sit Jack Conklin down. Let him know you respect him. Let him know you intend to, honor his contract and everything. But also let him know that we expect him to be a leader. We expect him to embrace a backup position for this team. I think the worst thing to do is to make this a competition. Because I'm going to be honest with you. What's going to decide if DeJuan Jones plays or if Jack Conklin plays is not going to be training camp reps. It's going to be about a preference from the front office and the coaching staff. Do the front office and the coaching staff, do they want to preference having a experienced former All-Pro right tackle be at that position at the start of the year? Or do they value giving that experience to the young player with the upside? That's the decision that you're making. You don't need 4 weeks of camp to make that decision. You don't need OTAs to make the decision. You know what direction you're going to go pretty much right now. I hope that's been communicated. I hope that's something that can be understood. I think once OTAs comes, we'll see where they are with this, but that is paramount. You got to get that understood of what's going on. Because if Jack Conklin does accept the role as a backup and DeJuan Jones starts, I do think that's best case scenario for the team. Jed at left, Joe Bitonio at left guard, Ethan Posick at center, Wyatt Teller at right guard, DeJuan Jones at right tackle, and then you could bring in Jack Conklin as like a real elite eligible tackle when you need extra protection, or if you just want to pound the ball in the red zone, you could use Jack Conklin as a special piece. And also you can bring Jack Conklin in. And hell, maybe you want to do something creative like we saw Baltimore do last year. Baltimore rotated their tackles last year. They would bring in Falele, they would bring in Ronnie Stanley, and that was a way to kind of work around the knee issues that Ronnie Stanley had. Maybe that's something that the Cleveland Browns consider. Right now, it's normally taboo to switch in and out your offensive lineman because that's just normally not done. But we do it at literally every other position. So I don't see why it's not worth trying here, especially if other successful NFL teams have been able to try that successfully. So maybe you could utilize them both that way by rotating them on and off. Maybe you could utilize Jack Conklin as a specialty piece, or maybe Jack Conklin will just be the best six-man in the NFL as far as offensive line goes. That, I think, is the path forward for Jack Conklin. I think it's an awkward situation. I think it's a situation that needs to be settled right now so that when the team does start OTAs, these guys have a long time to accept the role and position that they're going to be asked to do this year. I do think that it's better for Jack Conklin to sit the bench because I think the upside for DeJuan Jones, and quite honestly, the floor of DeJuan Jones is worth it. I don't want to risk putting DeJuan Jones on the bench and permanently stunting his development by getting him away from game reps at the wrong time or making him feel like he's been demoted, which might discourage him. I want to do everything possible to encourage DeJuan Jones because I think if he is encouraged, he will be one of the better offensive linemen that you have on the team. Also, just him getting more reps, probably more important because you want to get cheaper at the offensive line. And Jack Conklin probably not going to be a part of this team next year. It just makes sense. So I hope that's what they do. But let me know what you think that the Cleveland Browns should do with this awkward tackle situation. Do you think they should stick with Jack Conklin? Do you think they should roll with DeJuan Jones? Do you think they should get super creative, rotate these guys in and out? Let me know down in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.